What's going on, everyone? Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Bleed Lows podcast. The Dodgers are back in LA this week. Two of our megastars are coming off the IL, and we're counting down to the trade deadline. All that and more coming up next. Hello again and welcome back. The whole crew is hanging out with you tonight. Our boy Cody is with us. We got Anthony in the house, and as you know, I am Drea. Before we dive into it all, we're going to tell you about DodgersBeat.com. Stay up to date and in the know with all the latest coverage of the LA Dodgers. Never miss a beat, and check out DodgersBeat.com. Okay, fellas, we are approaching the time of the season when things get real. I want all your takes tonight. But first, how are you? Cody, start with you.
Yeah, doing good. It's really exciting. Trade deadline as the time of we're recording this is a week away, 7 days by the time this comes out, be a little bit under a week. So clearly we've heard some news and rumblings. We're getting some contradicting reports from Passan to Nightingale to Ken Rosenthal, Katie Wu alike. So I always like it when we get a little bit closer because I just feel this year, especially because of how many teams are technically still in the race, I really do think a lot of these deals that are going to be blockbuster ones, if they happen, are going to come down probably the last couple hours of the deadline next Monday.
Oh my God, it's going to be so much fun. We'll definitely want to all be here to kind of break it all down together. But yeah, Anthony, how you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been not that long since we talked. Had our conversation here, but I don't know. It feels like with the trade deadline, I feel like we're kind of just in limbo. It doesn't. I don't know if teams are really going to deal. It feels like it's just a lot of chatter right now. I think by maybe Thursday of this week, we might know the real landscape of things, of whether teams are going to really fully go all in or keep the rosters they have and stuff like that. So right now, it's kind of just reading rumblings and tea leaves and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, I definitely think that as the days get closer to Monday, which is the trade deadline, we're definitely going to be able to kind of get a closer, view about, what the landscape is for which teams are actually going to have to be, the sellers. But right now, things are still good in Dodgerland. We're 67-39, still number one in baseball. Brewers are chomping away at us, so they're ready to take over that lead if they can. But we still got a 12-game lead in our division. As Anthony said, Cody, we had a show not just a few days ago. We were breaking down the Yankees and the Phillies series, and we haven't had a chance to hear your take. So we'll kind of start with you. What was your overall impression with the Yankees and the Phillies series before we transition to the Mets that we just saw play?
Yeah, very impressed. During the regular season, I feel like there's a lot of bad memories of coming up to Philadelphia. So for them to take 2-3 there, a series where they didn't throw any one of their, quote unquote aces other than Robleski, who looked really good. They Christopher Sanchez made him work a little bit to get to that Phillies bullpen where they almost ended up coming back in that one game that they lost, but they ended up rebounding in the final two, taking it to the Phillies. And then even the Yankee series, they made one of probably who I would say is the American League Cy Young runner in Cam Schlittler. They made him work and got to the Yankees bullpen, which besides, once you get to the ninth inning with them, it's kind of a little bit vulnerable. You can see a little bit of Yankees fans complaining about that. But, to go into New York, you go into Queens, you should have pulled out with the sweep, which we'll talk about. But, really good road trip, especially to kick off the second half where they really didn't have an off day at all. Even that one off day that they did have, they went to Washington, D.C. to the White House to have that visit to celebrate, last year's World Series victory. But, East Coast road trip right after the All-Star break, you're playing two really good teams, both in the National League and the American League. And then, you cap it off with the Mets, who, while they aren't really good, record-wise right now, since they let go of their manager, they have been playing a lot better. But, thankfully the Dodgers took care of business like I expected them to.
They did take care of business. We were very fortunate throughout this entire road trip when we didn't sweep it all. But yes, there's some things to kind of break down. I mean, we're so fortunate. Everything is pretty much wonderful, but what would a podcast be if we didn't kind of really just nitpick some things and see where we can make some improvements? So let's transition into the Met series. Anthony, we obviously took 2 out of 3. It was exactly as you touted in our last episode. The Sunday game was, the one we were not going to win because you know how it is on Sundays. But there are some things to really kind of look at where we can make some tweaks. I think one of the key things I heard was that Robert said walks were too high. We all saw that. They were not hitting with runners in scoring position. But just kind of give me your overall take as you watch the Friday, Saturday, Sunday games.
Friday, Saturday, I had more fun compared to Sunday. Sunday, it felt like I don't know if sleepwalking was the correct term, but it looked like they kind of just didn't want to be out there. They were kind of just going through the motions, and they played a really good game for about 5 innings. Innings 6 and 7 is kind of where the bullpen kind of self imploded. For me, overall, as a series, another great step for Roki Sasaki. I feel like another confidence boost, a vote of confidence, at least on my side. It looks like a completely different player. I'm looking forward to his next start here. I think he has one here coming up against Seattle, so I'm willing to see if he's kind of if this is going to be the guy going forward the second half of the season. Maybe we really don't need to make a trade deadline move. I would argue that I still would love the big fish that we all know who's out there. I would go all in for him, but other than that, I think offensively we did well. As now that I'm thinking about, we spent all of last pod basically saying like Kyle Tucker has to do more. He has to do more. You can't be making this much money and not providing any sort of offense. And he came through big in game one, had another monster bomb in game two. So hopefully it's a step in the right direction. And hopefully it just wasn't like he's facing the Mets and their pitching staff is awful and he kind of was able to tee off on some really bad pitching. Hopefully, he's able to build that against Seattle, against Boston, and I think after Boston we play Chicago again. So hopefully, those are just like little milestones for him. Not necessarily something getting everything all at once, but just little milestones here and there. Like, okay, this was a successful series. Can we build on that for the next series going forward? Stuff like that.
Yeah, I like it. Just kind of sticking with those two players that you just mentioned, Anthony. Kind of talk to me a little bit more and expand on it, Cody, because we did see some improvement in the last two games. I mean, maybe just New York just resonates with Roki. Who knows what it is? Maybe Anthony and I talked about that oversized glove, which indicates maybe they thought he was tipping pitches. We don't know. We also did want to talk about like a little bit about Tucker because, maybe if this could be turning a new leaf, that would be amazing. So talk to me about the Mets, talk to me about Roki and Tucker and anything else that kind of stood out to you with the Mets series.
Yeah, I kind of think when you go into a series against a team that's so far under 500, that really has no expectations for the second half, you have to take advantage of those games. And that's even for the series that's coming up against the Mariners. The Mariners are a struggling team right now as well. So you expect the Dodgers to take care of business against teams like that. And, they did that. They took 2 or 3. Sunday, Sunday's like the worst day of the week as a Dodgers fan. As long as I can remember, I feel like they never win on Sunday, and I kind of just come to expect it. A lot of that is because Emmett Sheehan's been the starter this year on Sunday, but this time it actually wasn't his fault. He actually had a really solid game. The bullpen kind of let him down at the second half of that game, and they end up dropping the series finale. But there's a lot of good takeaways you can get from this series. Obviously, Roki Sasaki having back-to-back starts, looking really impressive. Probably has to do with the glove, but it also has to do with him probably feeling mechanically sound. His lower half is definitely whatever workouts that they've been doing. They've been bringing it up on the broadcast too, but just comparing his stature from last year when he was initially signed to this year, he definitely looks a little bit bulkier. He definitely looks a little bit stronger in the lower end, and that's the biggest key for a pitcher at any level. So feels like he's gotten that work, and that's definitely led to the velocity uptick, I believe. Him still having the continued, rest in between starts probably benefits him as well. It's kind of going to be interesting to see how they navigate that over the next couple of weeks, just because, they don't have Shohei Ohtani as the 6th starter anymore. So yes, tomorrow's starter for game 1 against Seattle is listed as TBD. Do they go with the bullpen game? Do they go with the bulk starter guy? So, but I like what we saw with Roki, and then Kyle Tucker's the big one for the second half because it's kind of like Mookie Betts' situation last year where, look, we know what the numbers on the back of the baseball card want to look like, but they're just not going to look like that this year for Tucker. And it was always a stretch that he was going to ever live up to that $60 million contract per year. And he would have to have at least over 40 home runs and OPS well over 1,000 and, multiple stolen bases, Gold Glove defense. And it was kind of unfair expectations that were probably put on him. But what he really needs to be, especially where he's at in the order now, is just somebody that has a good eye at the plate, gets on base, and can have occasional pop. We already saw that he's a good base runner because he got in that rundown against New York, and he almost made it back home when everybody was advancing around, the merry-go-round around the bases. But he is a solid player, and they just want him to show up in October. Just forget whatever happened during the regular season, turn the page, get, consistent at bats and consistency with your, the way your plate appearances go, and trying to get walks and just pass the baton. And then once October clicks, the best 9 have to start. And I've mentioned that before. Whether him or Kiké Hernández are hotter, I feel like Dave Roberts is going to make the right decision to say, look, payroll aside, I got to start the best guys out here in October on an everyday basis. So for the Dodgers, Tucker could be a quote unquote trade deadline acquisition if he can get going. And I think that would be the best case scenario for the Dodgers.
It's cool to think of him as a trade deadline acquisition because, that's kind of what we're seeing with a couple of our players coming back from the IL, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But it feels like if everyone could just be healthy, it feels like we're going to be gaining, even though we've already had these players. It's going to feel like a lot of acquisitions. But yeah, kind of talk to you more about some players, Anthony, that I just wanted your take on, because we obviously saw Teo, who was a little bit of a head scratcher with some of the plays, although at the end of the day, I think he was safe on that play where he went to second, but that was a little, people were questioning, should he have slid into the second base when he had that double that he got out at. And then just kind of general play on him. And I also want your take on the bullpen, because we did see Evan Phillips and he hasn't really been too kind of the Evan Phillips of old that we were used to. And I kind of, it's your, resident bullpen dog expert. I kind of want to know, should we be worried about our bullpen? So kind of stick to those for a little bit with me.
Yeah, so I'll start with Teoscar. At least for me, on my viewpoint, I think he kind of got caught in between, should I slide, should I stand up, should I slide, can I stand up? And before he realized it, he got too close to the bag and was like, well, no choice, stand up. So it's one of those plays, like, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things for the game. We ended up losing that regardless because of the bullpen, stuff like that. But it's something that you have to keep in mind and have to clean up when it comes to October, because if that was a game, let's say game 2 of the NLDS, and it's a very close game and he gets thrown out for that, I'm pretty sure a lot of us would feel a certain type of way if that's the way the game ended, because he kind of was lazy going into second base. The bullpen, it's weird. It feels like the issue is kind of mid-relief. It doesn't feel like the issue typically would be our high leverage guys. And I know Evan Phillips in the past has been a high leverage guy, but it feels like every time he's come into high leverage this season, which has been only a few times, he's kind of like blown it. It's an unfortunate thing. I think it kind of just has to deal with more with him kind of just getting back up to speed and stuff like that. I'm hoping it's kind of just, okay, I'm kind of just flat with my command. The pitches are there. I feel good, but everything is kind of flat, and these guys are making me pay for it. It doesn't help that every time he goes out there, I feel like he gives up a home run, a very crucial home run. The last couple outings he's had has given up crucial home runs. So for me, I'm willing to give Evan Phillips more leash, maybe in higher leverage situations, kind of go out there, get a feel for things, stuff like that. The other guy we have listed here, Will Klein, I'm starting to think maybe it might be just a usage thing with him. He looks kind of gassed and stuff like that. I saw a lot of people mentioning maybe it's time for a Phantom IL, but I don't know if we have that luxury, or maybe we might actually have that luxury with, now that I think of it, Edwin Díaz is scheduled to be back soon. But I don't know if I would Phantom IL Will Klein. He says he feels fine. It's kind of just more of a mechanic thing that he's probably working through, stuff like that. But most of our bullpen guys, like Jack Dreyer, had a stinker on Sunday, but he's been pretty solid up until then. So it could just be one of those, like, okay, they're just not going to be good for a 2-3 week stretch of the period. But after that, they find their mechanics and they're back to being who they are. Oh, no. Oh, no.
She's frozen.
Yeah.
Oh, there she is.
Okay.
I'm here. Can you see me?
Yeah, we can see you now.
Edit this.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Kind of just expanding on that a little bit, because Klein was someone that I definitely wanted to talk about. I mean, he's pushing an 8 ERA. And so one of the reasons why July was just kind of just a stinker for the bullpen in general, it's a 4.86 collective ERA. But Cody, will that even matter in October? Because obviously we're going to need less starting pitching in October. We've got a lot of our pitchers coming back. Things could change. Obviously, we don't know who the trade deadline acquisition will be, but there could be some changes. Will it even matter? Because the bullpen will probably look so different in October anyway.
Yeah, I feel like from now on until October, when the Dodgers are just going to look at to see who the best, 13 pitchers in the club are going to be. And if Tyler Glasnow, Blake Snell, and others come back healthy and say they trade for another starter, whether it's Skubal or somebody else, then you really have a luxury over here, because I really do like what Lauer's brought to the table, where I feel like if he continues to pitch as well as he has, we saw him in the Blue Jays bullpen in the World Series last year and during their playoff run. He could definitely be a swingman guy. Justin Robleski, as good as he's been this year, I would say if every one of those starters that was on the Dodgers postseason run last year is healthy, it sucks to say, but I feel like he would be more valuable in the bullpen as a weapon to use, whether, Ohtani just has a short start or if he wants to piggyback off of somebody else. And, you start to narrow it down and kicking some of the guys out of the bullpen. And Will Klein, World Series hero last year from his performance in Game 3, got off to a really good start at the start of this season. But like Anthony said, maybe it's just a fatigue thing. Maybe it's, he's pitching more than he ever has before, especially with Evan Phillips, where he just got back from missing, a year and a half from Tommy John surgery. So we're waiting for him to get back into the swing of things as well. And the only thing that's really bit him since he's come back has been the long ball. I mean, if he eliminates that, he's been pretty fine. So the Dodgers are going to take their time to figure out who those best 13 to 14 pitchers are on their roster. But it all really hinders on, is Shohei Ohtani going to pitch in the second half? Will he pitch in October? All signs look like, it's kind of up in the air, but I kind of trust Dave Roberts on it, where they do believe that he will come back this season. And then also with Glasnow and Snell, how do they look in the second half of the season as well, particularly with Glasnow? Because if Glasnow isn't built up to, ramp up as a starter, where I'm imagining in my head, I think he's going to be that September 1st extra player is when he'll probably come back to the major league mound. Is he going to be built up to go 5 or more innings? If he's not, then he's another guy that just shifts right to the bullpen, where he got ate some innings in there last year in the Phillies series and then in the World Series as well. So we'll see what happens. The Dodgers do have an embarrassment of riches in the bullpen and in the pitching department in general. I think Katie Wu was alluding to that in her article today, going over the trade deadline preview for the Dodgers. So the Dodgers have a lot of avenues they can go through this trade deadline. So it's just if they want to go out and get the big fish or not.
Or we could just have Yamamoto close every game and not even have to worry about a bullpen at all. Too. That could be an option. So we'll see. But yeah, speaking of Ohtani, it's another big piece of news because there is concern. I mean, he didn't look super sharp, to put it lightly, in the Mets series, and it's kind of causing people to ask some questions. Is this knee injury kind of hindering his swing too, even though he's obviously not going to pitch for a while. But it's kind of scary to me because I know he's the kind of player that, just like Freddie or a Kobe, doesn't want to miss a game. The Shohei Ohtani wants to be out there. But the reality of it is we have a huge lead in the division. We don't have to play him every game. And I'm just thinking, at this point, would it be that bad, Anthony, just to just put him in some bubble wrap for a while and save him for when we really do need him? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a tricky one because, like you said, these guys are not going to want to miss games unless they're legitimately injured and can't go out there and compete. I know Shohei's dealing with the little thing in his knee. It's kind of more of a pain tolerance when he pitches, but I think if he's good enough to hit, he's good enough to hit, and he'll let you know whether he's good enough or not. I think sometimes with him as well, too, he just kind of goes in those stretches where he looks completely lost at the plate, or he's going just over anxious and kind of swinging at all 3 pitches and doesn't really work a count. And it kind of forces the guys behind him to kind of step up and when he's in those little lulls and stuff. So for me, yeah, I would love to load manage all these guys, but I don't know if I know we have the luxury, but I don't want them to lose their rhythm and stuff like that. If you kind of mess with it and they sit out for way too long and they lose their rhythm, and now it's late August and they're like, okay, can you ramp back up? And with a lot of these guys, I think it's better if you just let them play through it, unless, again, it's a very nagging and serious injury and they do have to miss time. With Shohei, I think you just have to let him play through it, DH it. I think the whole load managing on the pitching side, I think they're just saving his best bullets for October. That's what it feels like. We mentioned it before. Yamamoto's most important innings he pitched last year were during the whole entire postseason run throughout the whole World Series and stuff like that. So I think for Shohei, at least at his part, if it was game 1 of the NLCS and we're lined up Mizorowski, I'm pretty sure Shohei would be getting that ball, if not Yamamoto as well, too. So I think it's just a load managing thing. I think they're kind of just realized, we have such a big lead. Why even risk it here in July, August, when we can use this weapon for us more in October?
Yeah, that makes sense. I just sometimes worry about how much we actually know about the behind the scenes. And again, Shohei would, obviously communicate that to the front office, but I don't always know if we get the full story. We get what they want us to know, but I do worry about Ohtani because, I mean, what he does to his body, I don't think the average person can comprehend. And he is getting older. Cody, just kind of talk to me a little bit more about Ohtani, kind of what your take on where he's at, when we'll likely see him pitch again. Do you think it's going to be postseason? And also, there was some key news on him that I started to see kind of trickle in, because Robert said he's the for sure MVP, whether he pitches or not. But then now some people are chattering about PCA kind of overtaking that. So just kind of give me your overall assessment on where we're at with Ohtani.
Yeah, I agree with Anthony on a lot of everything about Ohtani. The situation does seem a little odd to me, just because if you're someone who's played any sport or does anything athletic, if you're having like knee pain, especially for Ohtani, where it's it's his left leg, so that's the leg that's driving down on the mound, that would probably affect me swinging a baseball bat too. And clearly it's not, because even though he didn't look too right during the Mets series, he has looked really good overall this season, especially since the first report of the knee issues. So I don't think it's necessarily affecting him too much in that regard, but it kind of comes to Dave Roberts' credit, where you kind of have to start to protect the players from themselves. And I feel like that's what the Dodgers have done. They've definitely probably sat Ohtani down and had a conversation and said, look, you're not going to win the Cy Young. You're still one of the best pitchers in baseball. We need you for October. We don't need you for June, July, August, September. We need you for October right now. And you will get to pitch again at some point this season. I imagine they're probably going to give him the entire month of July off, because I think the last time he pitched was on the 3rd, maybe the first or 3 weeks into August, maybe, and then start to slowly bring him back into the game, and maybe go to the plan that they had last year, where maybe he'll do 3 innings, and then he'll do 4 innings, and then he'll do 5 innings. I think with Ohtani's thing is that he just doesn't want to lose any bit of ramp up, which is why he's continuing to try to throw these bullpen sessions, because the moment he shuts it down, you're starting from scratch. You're going all the way back to 0 with the ramp up. So he's going to have to slowly progressively build that arm back up, and that could take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. It's different for every pitcher, and it's different for Ohtani, who isn't like a normal pitcher where if he's injured, he's just off. He still has to hit and lead off the game. So I do think if the pitching side of things start to affect his bat more, I think the Dodgers really do have to take a look in the mirror and say, where do we value Ohtani more? And we've made this argument before. He's clearly a better hitter than he is a better pitcher, or he's more valuable as a hitter to the Dodgers than just being a two-way player or being a pitcher. That doesn't mean we don't want him to do both. It means we just want him where the team definitely needs him. Right now, the starting rotation is starting to get a little more solidified, especially when Snell comes back. Katie Wu, I think, also mentioned that I believe there's a 13-game stretch the team plays in a row, I think in August, and Snell could be activated during that stretch. So you're starting to see the dominoes fall there. As far as the MVP race, I know Kalshi or whatever, all these live betting platforms, they have PCA starting to creep up a little bit. I think Ohtani, he would have to have a huge second half drop off in offensive numbers, because he's done enough with the pitching already. He already has a sub 2 ERA. He's got the K per 9. He's got the strikeout rate. He's got all that working for him. And he's also a guy that's on pace to hit 40 home runs, lead the National League in OPS, have top 10 in RBIs. So I think I'm in agreement with Dave Roberts here, where it's pretty much already locked up right now. If it was at, say, he didn't pitch at all this season and he didn't go crazy with the bat like he did in 2024, I would say it's probably up in the air at that point. It's up to the voters' fatigue if they want to continue voting for him or not, because it is a big deal if he's just a designated hitter hitting 40 home runs, getting 100 RBIs, because we've seen that before. He's got to do something really special to continue getting these MVP votes.
You never know. He always has something up his sleeve, and we could see another Greatest Game Part 2. Lots to come still. There's still a lot of the season left, even though we're talking about the end of the season. We're still going to see a lot of baseball in August and September, and for sure October. But yeah, we have some key pieces coming back, Anthony. My favorite boy in the world, Kiké Hernández. And we're going to see Edwin Díaz this week. So those some big moves right there. Talk to me about kind of like what you see happening with our roster, and how big of a deal it is that we're going to start to see the roster start to form in October.
It's very big deal. At least for me, with I'll start with Kiké first. When the injury first initially happened, I assumed that he would have been out at least until maybe August, mid-August, just because obliques are very tricky, stuff like that too. So to have him back before August is actually kind of a plus because he's a player that it doesn't show it in the stat sheet. It definitely doesn't show it in the regular season. It's more of a player for the postseason. So I kind of want him to kind of get real ABs ramped up. So when he comes to the postseason, I do think he will be in the lineup consistently just because of who he is and the player, the caliber he is. And with Edwin Diaz, we've only seen him pitch in what, 3 games, I think, this season. We were at one of those games and it didn't go well, unfortunately. So it's kind of one of those like you get given this gift in the off season and you can't even like use it because you have like all these complex pieces that have to go together and stuff like that. So hopefully the issues were resolved in the loose bodies, and hopefully he's able to contribute. Corresponding moves, I think it's pretty straightforward, at least for Kike. Alex Freeland. Alex Freeland is kind of the guy that I have circled. I'm sorry. I wish you luck in AAA. And in the bullpen, well, I have it here actually. Charlie Burns, Barnes, not Burns. There we go. Sayonara. See you later. So it's kind of two corresponding moves that make the most sense. So I'm just kind of excited to see them suit up and play some action.
Yeah, Diaz was returning on his bobblehead night. We did get tickets for that, so excited to be there. Hopefully, I'll get to see some Timmy trumpets again because you were right, we did not see enough of him, and I was so excited when we signed him. But yeah, we're going to see him. And you said, Cody, we're going to see Snell coming back very near future. He's still over in OKC, right, with his rehab, and then Glasnow luckily is starting to throw again. So kind of expand to me on what that looks like, taking also into account that there are reports coming out that we might possibly have Eric Lauer and Alex Call as trade pieces. So when do you start to see how the roster will form in the next few weeks?
Yeah, so we're starting to see some chips fall into place, especially with August, right around the horizon, and then September, and then pretty soon it's going to be postseason baseball, guys. And Blake Snell's going to make another rehab start on Wednesday. The team is going to decide how he feels after that. They'll have a conversation, and then if he feels good enough, they may insert him back into the starting rotation. I know they did that already earlier this year, and it didn't work out. He made one start and then ended up getting surgery, but hopefully everything looks better after this Wednesday start. So good luck to him. Tyler Glasnow hitting 95, 97 miles per hour, facing live hitters. I know he's supposed to probably face them at least one more time before he has a conversation with the training staff and then to see if he'll go out on a rehab assignment. And then after that, it will be Eric Lauer decision time, which is where, you have the bulk of the starters, the pitching depth that the Dodgers have. And Katie Woo made an interesting point where Eric Lauer could be a point of interest for opposing clubs. The Dodgers could take that luxury and ship it away. Similar situation what they did with Dustin May last year, where they had a surplus of starters that were coming back from the IL. Dustin May's spot on the roster seemed a little bit redundant, so they got a little bit back from him, and they actually ended up getting a good piece amount back from him. They got James Tibbs the third, and he's been going off in OKC this year, and everybody's been calling for his name as one of our top outfielding prospects. And then you have Alex Cawthorn in there. I know Alex Call's been ruffling the wrong feathers with the Dodgers fandom as of late. He clipped Ohtani in the elbow with his cleat. He had the boneheaded decision to waste both of the Dodgers challenges in his first at-bat of the game. I still do think Call has a little bit of value, but even with his opportunity to get regular at-bats, we've started to see the offensive metrics dip. He's got a WRC plus under 100, batting average under 250, only one home run. Really, the only value Call gives you is decent defense, and he doesn't strike out, which is something I do like for a team in October. But the Dodgers are going to start getting a lot of these players back where Alex Call is going to kind of be an afterthought on the Dodgers bench, especially with Kiké Hernández back and how good he looked in his brief 2 games that he played. Tommy Evans looked amazing since, he's come back from his ankle injury. And, you got these other guys that are everyday players on the roster, whether it's Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Max Muncy. It's going to be hard for these guys to, get any playing time. So Alex Call, if a team's willing to call for him, then they may be willing to make that move.
Call for call. Yeah, with the slim pickings of starting pitching out there for the people who want to be buyers, I mean, it makes sense to take a look at Eric Lauer, even though I really happy that he was ours for the time, eating up his innings and making sure that we took some wins away with him when he had his starts. But yeah, Anthony, are you in line with capitalizing off of those two men's value in about a week's time and expanding on that? What are our, like, I think you know what you'll say, but the needs and the wants in 7 days for our trade?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it might be time to capitalize on these, and maybe it's not for an impact player right away, but the front office has done a very good job at kind of identifying prospects that kind of could play a bigger part in this picture. Maybe not this year, but in the years going forward. So for me, I love Eric Lauer, but I think he has served his purpose, which was inning eater. He is 8-0 whenever he starts, which is actually kind of a fascinating stat. And the same could be said for Alex Call. I think it's just become a log jam. There's really no opportunities for him going forward, unless there's significant injury, in which case I would love to keep Alex Call. And I was doing some homework on some guys that might, quote unquote, be available. I mean, the very obvious one is Tarik Skubal. If he truly is available, you have to go all in for it, because I started going through the starting pitchers, quote unquote, market. And the other name that was kind of thrown around, Freddie Peralta, not really kind of interested. I know there was those rumors late in the offseason last year that there might be a possibility for us to trade for it. I'm not buying it. And it's kind of hard to like narrow down teams, because a lot of these teams are still very much alive in the wild card race. There's only like a gap of maybe 1 or 2 games within like maybe 5 teams. So it's kind of hard to narrow down, okay, who would actually be willing to trade and who would actually want to trade with us, because no one's going to want to help the Dodgers in that point. So, I mean, I narrowed it down to like maybe 2 catchers that I thought possibly in case like Will Smith, just more red flags with his neck injury and stuff like that. But one of them I might have to eliminate, Jonah Heim, the A's catcher, just because as of this morning when I woke up, the other A's catcher has blown out his knee, and he's going to be out for the year. So I'm going to scratch that name off the list. I put Tyler Stevenson down. It'd be a free agent after this year, so no long-term commitment. But then again, it goes back to a lot of the reports that came out today. The Dodgers don't want to have someone that blockades Dalton Rushing. So will he be comfortable kind of being the backup to a backup, essentially? I don't know if he would be willing to accept that role. Maybe the opportunity of chasing a World Series championship kind of changes him. Like, hey, this might be the best chance I have at winning silverware, so I'm going to embrace being the backup to the backup, because we're all hoping that Will Smith will be back very shortly, taking over the main job here. And we all know the name that's out there when it's starting pitcher-wise, Tarik Skubal. If he really is out there, I would trade basically everything I want, because I think it's starting to picture, at least in my mind, I'm starting to picture the year Justin Verlander was available for trade and you Darvish, and you had one or the two. You either go Verlander, you either go Darvish. The Dodgers went Darvish, and Darvish had an awesome Dodger short-lived career. But I think Justin Verlander might have put them over the edge in that 2017 season. So it feels whoever goes all in for Skubal, I think might be lifting up a world championship. If it's the Dodgers, I think that solidifies their three-peat. We'll worry about baseball in 2 years' time from now. You have 3 championships. You don't have to worry about anything else. If it's the Brewers, I would still favor the Dodgers, but now they have 2 guys where I'm, okay, that might be an issue. And I know Mizorowski is very good, but he's kind of an unproven quantity when it comes to the playoffs. He did look electric for them the one time we did face him, but I would like to see more starts in the postseason before I'm able to label him as like, yeah, he's a solidified, ideal, like top guy in the playoffs. So for me, I think it's ultimately we're just waiting to see what happens with the Tigers. Are they going to be awful, or are they going to go like on a fake win streak, and before you know it, they're not going to put Skubal on the table? So the best move the Dodgers can make is Tarik Skubal, and if he's not available, the best move they can make is get healthy. That's basically where I'm at.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I echo it. You know who wouldn't have minded being the backup to the backup is Benjamin Thomas Rortvedt, but nobody wants to listen to me, and they decided to get rid of the ultimate catcher that I would have loved to have seen right now, but that's neither here nor there. Cody, expand on what Anthony is saying, because I want to know if you think there is a realistic catching option on the market right now that is what Anthony said, we'll actually trade with the Dodgers because nobody's looking for us to three-peat. Everyone wants to take us down. And it's really just slim pickings overall. So talk to me about that. And then I also I think that regardless of how the next few days turn out, I really do think that the Tigers would be dumb not to trade Tarik Skubal because he's gonna leave, he's gonna walk. They're not going to get anything for him. But taking all that into account, where do you see our needs and wants, and what could actually realistically happen in the next coming days?
Yeah, I mean, the trade deadline's an interesting time because you do have to, for us, we watch it in depthly and we want certain things to happen, but then you also have to have the realistic side of things as well, where how teams view the Dodgers, how the Dodgers view the positions that are out there, how they view the market. I mean, Andrew Freeman and the rest of the front office has been pretty blunt in saying, they don't like making trades at the trade deadline just because they try to avoid this in the offseason by getting and filling all the holes that they can everywhere else. And we've seen that the last couple of years. But this year, I don't buy the Dave Roberts talk where he says, we may be sellers at the deadline. They're not going to be sellers. They may sell off one or two pieces like an Eric Lauer, possibly an Alex Call, maybe somebody else I'm not even thinking of. But for the most part, they're going to buy. And whether it's, getting at the peripherals of the roster and maybe getting an extra bench bat or a bullpen arm just to eat innings, a starter who, like a journeyman starter that can at least maybe eat innings as well to kind of preserve the arms, they're going to do something. What we want them to do is we want them to go all in. And Katie Woo seems to be in lockstep with Bob Nightingale. Jeff Passan has also been very adamant about how active the Dodgers are going to be this deadline. And it really all hinders on Detroit. Detroit just lost their third in a row today. They're 6 games back of the Central. They're 5 games back, I believe, the final AL wildcard spot. So by this time at the end of the week, they could be almost 10 games back of the division and maybe a little bit even further from the wild card with multiple teams ahead of them. If the teams ahead of Detroit begin to sell, like Baltimore, like Minnesota, like these other teams, then probably Detroit's going to have to read the writing on the wall and say, look, we got to get the most of what we can get with Skubal right now. And the Dodgers, in my opinion, not trying to be biased, do have the best package. Tigers do not have many outfielders in their farm system. They want a controllable young starting pitcher to put into the rotation for the foreseeable future. The Dodgers check off all those boxes. They have like 7 prospects in the top 100 of MLB Pipeline's top 100. They have multiple starting pitchers that they want to include. And honestly, if you're the Tigers, you got to ask for Justin Robleski. And I kind of struggle with it to say, do you give up Robleski to get Skubal? I think if it's on the table, probably. I don't know if they'll take an Emmett Sheehan at this point, but you kind of have to make some tough decisions there. But to kind of get away from the Skubal talk, obviously we all know that's the big fish that everybody wants, that the Dodgers would probably push all their chips in to get. I do think they do have to address the catching position. And just like Anthony, I had multiple catchers on that list, including Jonah Heim. I even had Shane Langoliers added in on there because they had his contract dispute with the A's. And I said, oh, maybe you can get one of the other. Well, Langoliers needs a new knee. So that's out. Heim was having a really good season as his backup as well. And he's a free agent at the end of this season. So that would have been a nice rental move. I actually do, Drea, believe that they could swing a trade for Ben Wortvit, who is just sitting in AAA right now, especially if they can't get anything to materialize over the next couple days for a catcher. The other one I'm looking at is Luis Torrens from the New York Mets. He is one of the best defensive catchers in baseball this year. He ranks 95th in fielding run value on Baseball Savant, is top 90 in pop time, framing, and then caught stealing above average. I think a perfect thing to put with this Dodgers club. They could technically run 3 catchers on their postseason roster. They did it last year for the first 2 rounds of the playoffs because Will Smith had an injury. Dalton Rushing was on the team, and then they had Ben Wortvit. You could have a defensive first catcher in Torrens, Will Smith ready with the bat, and then Dalton Rushing ready to be the full kind of offensive and defensive type catcher that if they need it for October. But obviously you hope Smith is healthy by the end of the season, but I wouldn't mind if they swung for a defensive first catcher. I actually still hope they just trade for Wortvit. I feel like it would just be easy. He's already familiar with the pitching staff. I saw Watson talking about it on MLB Network when she was on there while they were in New York this week. So I could see a move like that happening. I wrote about it as well. Maybe they try to address the bench. I know Kiké Hernández is coming back. That kind of solves that issue right there. But I mentioned Alex Call just hasn't been good this year, especially given more and more plate appearances. He just really hasn't taken advantage of the moment. Hae-Sung Kim's kind of just sitting in AAA. I don't think he's going to get another shot this season. Alex Freeland, who Anthony and I just said is going to be the odd man out once Kiké Hernández is back. Don't see him coming back up this season. So they really kind of need some right-handed hitter because Teoscar Hernandez has been shaky this season. Obviously, Kiké Hernández could be that guy that solves that issue, but it's really starting pitching depth and then a catcher, and then possibly a bench bat would be kind of the three areas I think the Dodgers could address, with the big one obviously being Tarik Skubal.
Wow. Okay, all of that. You do know if that word bet comes back, I'm going to be untamable on my social media. So you guys must want to log off that day because it'll just drag on wild. But yeah, Tarik Skubal, do the right thing, Tigers. Give him to the Dodgers. Bring him to the dark side. I would love nothing more than just to go all in. Let's get our three-peat and let's not care.
And like my thought process with Detroit right now, and it's kind of funny because they sold at the 2024 deadline. And they gave us Jack Flaherty, and they ended up still making the playoffs. There's like a situation where you can see what is on the wall. Skubal's not going to re-sign. You trade him away, get the best package back. If the Dodgers do have to give up Robleski, it sounds crazy, but it is kind of on par with how they've both pitched this season, where it's very similar. And you get Robleski for another 5 years, and you still have the same amount of players on offense that they're getting back. The division still is really bad. So even if they do have glim odds of getting into the postseason, you're really just doing a 1-for-1 swap with someone that you're getting more control. It's hard to sell to the fans, but if you're Scott Harris and you're running the Tigers, front office, you're probably like, I'll take that deal. I like that deal.
It would sting, but I would definitely go with it if we're getting a Skubal. So the trade deadline, it is exactly 7 days from now. It's going to be 6 o'clock 6 o'clock, right? Your time, Cody, 3 o'clock Pacific time. So we'll definitely make announcements on the social media, but for what our show will be and kind of talking all about that. But yeah, let's kind of switch gears. Something really cool that happened today. You can catch it on DodgersBeat. You can catch it on the Bleed Lows podcast YouTube channel. But Mookie Betts, this is really cool. He launched a new line of gloves. And over in Fullerton today, there was a launch party, and I guess it's called Legend. I'm very unfamiliar with gloves, the cost of them. Anthony, you posted something that just kind of made my eyes fall out of my head. I had no idea gloves cost that much. I mean, they're stunning. But just kind of give me your thoughts on his line and kind of like your overall impressions. And how could it be so expensive to play baseball? Oh my God.
That's another question for a different time. How could it be so expensive to play baseball? I can have my dad sit down here and we can have a long conversation about that. Overall, I think it's a very cool because it's his own brand of gloves. I'm pretty sure he has both infield and outfield options as well. I think for most baseball players, it's hard to have what NBA players have, which is the sneaker deals and stuff like that. I know guys have cleat deals and stuff like that, but that's kind of on the field stuff. So another element to it would be getting your own gloves. You kind of customize stuff like that, equipment and stuff like that. Again, I've been out of the game so long. The glove that I've probably had for 6 years now. I probably won't buy another one. Actually, when I went to Japan, I really considered buying another one just so I can say I own a glove from Japan, but didn't pull through with the trigger. But yeah, baseball equipment, very expensive. Not just gloves, bats, all sorts of accessories and stuff like that. I was never an accessory guy. I barely had some batting gloves that lasted basically throughout high school. I was always kind of just the fundamentals, basically. If I had a glove and I had cleats, I was good to play. Sunglasses, it depended, but I was always too scared to play with it. I preferred eye black sunglasses. You looked cool, but I was always too scared that like I would either drop it or I would take a ground ball straight to the glasses and they'd break and stuff like that. So overall, I think it's very cool. Mookie has his own brand of gloves. These are the initial drops, so I would assume as the years go by, he kind of gets more maybe players involved, more collabs and stuff like that. So I know gloves is kind of very popular now. A lot of well, at least a lot of people that I see wearing gloves, there's like ice cream gloves and stuff like that. No, I kind of stick to the basic glove. I think it comes down to the player. I'm not going to spend $300 on a glove if the player I'm coaching is not any good. You can use any other regular glove and stuff like that. At least that's what my father used to say. So it's a very cool thing. It's a very cool project. It's awesome that it's happening now.
It's cute. And Mookie Betts, I mean, can't go wrong with his brand and his name. But yeah, I'm almost glad I didn't have any kids. So because I would have been the kind of mom that would have spent an arm and a leg to buy all of that stuff. So saving money over here. But yeah, Cody, you play too, right? I mean, is that kind of like in line with what people like spend or will spend for a brand like Mookie Betts?
Yeah, personally, I'm a Wilson guy. I like the A2000 infield, and I like Anthony said, this entire glove is black, so we just keep it black here. Maybe sometimes with the outfield mitt, we'll add some teal to it, but no, I've always been a Wilson or Rawlings guy. They do get expensive, but the way I always looked at it is that, baseball gloves are an investment, especially if you get a really good brand and you get a really good model. I have my Rawlings infield mitt and catching mitt since I was like 13. I still use the catching mitt to this day. It's one of those gloves that just lasts forever. And then even when I bought the Wilson infield A2000 infield mitt, like $250. That was like in 2020. I think they're almost at $300 now with inflation, but it's a glove I'm probably not going to replace for like 15 years, especially if you take care of it. So, yeah, it can get expensive. I saw the Mookie Betts launch. I think he's been using that glove or like his model this entire season. And I remember mentioning it to, one of our old Dodger beat writers. And I was like, is he using an A2000 still? Because that's usually what he would use every game. But then I saw it started to be with his logo on it. And I was like, I looked at Wilson's website. I was like, I don't see any signature gloves for him. So maybe he got his own brand. And finally officially came out. But I'm not huge on the colors. It's either brown, black, or tan when it comes to my baseball gloves. And never been flamboyant like that. But it's to each his own. And that's kind of the way baseball is kind of going right now, especially when when I'm coaching the little kids and I just see them coming out there with the Oakley sunglasses, 2 sliding mitts, an elbow guard when they're only throwing maybe 30 miles per hour. And I'm like, come on, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? But it's fun. It is fun. I do think Mookie Betts did deserve a signature glove. Even when he was with Wilson, he never had his own line, which I thought was funny just because he won so many gold gloves in the outfield and, transitioning from an outfielder to an infielder and to being a really good defensive shortstop and second baseman, kind of taking advantage of that right now.
I love it. I mean, Mookie Betts, he's top of his game. His name sells. The Dodgers brand sells. I mean, Lululemon I think they just dropped a line that is kind of more in line with kind of what I can afford. But I mean, Anthony, born and raised and all the things that collaborate with the Dodgers. I mean, it just seems to be a time when you really want to capitalize on LA Dodgers. And this is the time to definitely put that out. But there's one thing that I do want to get your take on, Anthony. It's, and Cody too, if everyone wants to chime in, but, starting tomorrow, there's a 6-part docuseries on Shohei Ohtani. I don't know if you saw it. It's an ESPN advertised. I guess parts 1 and 2 are tomorrow. It's a 30 for 30 docuseries on the ePay betting scandal. It's going to start tomorrow night, Tuesday, January 28th. 6 episodes in total. It's called The Betrayal of Shohei Ohtani. And it made me think. The first one I saw it, I'm like, oh, please don't bring this up again, because all the people are going to come out of the woodwork and they're going to talk about Shohei and betting, and people are going to believe what they're going to believe despite all of the evidence. But even though Ipe said he was totally at fault, will there always be people, Anthony, that just refuse to believe that Shohei is, not a degenerate gambler?
Yes. I don't think you'll be able to change people's minds on that issue. I think we have all the facts. The FBI investigated and stuff like that. I'm actually interested at watching this or listening to it. I'll follow along for it because I think we'll discuss it towards the end of the pod and stuff like that. But for me, I think it's kind of just beating a dead horse at this point. You're kind of click farming and engagement farming and all that. People are going to believe what they want to believe, but the evidence is there. The facts are there. There's no reason to kind of get worked up. I know a lot of people kind of get rage baited into debates and stuff like that. I kind of just ignore it. I read through it. I read a lot of the comments and I'm like, sometimes I'll sit there and think like this can't be an actual real person, right? This has to be like a bot or something that's kind of commenting and stuff like that. So I'm gonna listen, I'm gonna watch. But I know the truth. We all know the truth that Shohei is innocent. The one clip though that I saw or I heard on, I think on Instagram, where Ipe is kind of saying like, "Yes, this is Shohei Ohtani," actually
Yeah.
kind of made me laugh. I couldn't. I don't know why, but like it's just like this is very obviously not Shohei. You can I mean from all the interviews that we've seen him give, like in English as well too, you can tell this is clearly not Shohei. So it's very funny the clip that they shared. So I'll be listening. I'll be watching.
It's comical. Cody, what are your thoughts? Because I was like, I just got to know what the fellas think. Because it is like, yeah, I want it out there. I want the evidence to be laid out flat. But I mean, you're never gonna convince all the trolls.
Yeah, I mean, on one point, it's like you said, we're gonna get like more in-depth analysis of it. It's been a couple years now since the story broke. Ipe's gone through the whole trial. Now he's serving his sentence and all that. So, you got to get the truth out there. That's what the news outlets are going to do. So we're going to probably learn some things. Hopefully, some sides of it that have been kind of doubtful of Ohtani will kind of feel vindicated and saying like, all right, well, obviously wasn't the best situation for either person, but maybe now I can kind of get some clarity on it. But there's always, like Anthony said, there's going to be people that are going to take it to their grave to say Ohtani was a gambler. Ohtani did gamble. I even still, like, here on the East Coast, that's kind of the one thing that you bring up every time when I tell people I'm a Dodgers fan or an Ohtani fan, or, if he comes over here, whether it's to DC or Philadelphia, you always hear the chirps of it. And it's always funny just because they're like, well, how could he send this amount of money and like do this and that? And a little bit personal side, I work in the banking industry. It's so easy to commit fraud with these guys, especially at the multi-million level that they are. They get special access to accounts and privileges that us three don't get. So they can do some things in the banking world that normal people can't. And if a certain banker's not doing their due diligence and trying to make sure everything's right, Ipe could just pretend he is Ohtani over the phone line. That does happen all the time. Fraud's a big thing in the country. So we'll see what the docuseries brings out. I imagine it's just going to rifle some feathers, and we're just going to have this discourse on social media again. Like Anthony, I usually choose to ignore it or just not feed into it because it's usually just a troll with someone that doesn't have a profile picture on X, kind of just tweeting out there into just trying to get some extra dollars and cents from me for engagement.
I mean, we're living in the age of trolls. I mean, you just expect that, this is just part of our culture now, but absolutely interested in watching it, but definitely, not interested in looking at all the comments that what I've already seen. I'm like, ew, it's just disgusting out there. But let's turn our attention to what's coming up this week. We're back here in LA. Anthony and I already talked about how great the promotions are this week. So it's a very exciting week in Dodger land, and it's just like one banger after another. So looking forward to being at the stadium and kind of just breathing the fresh Dodger, Chavez Ravine air. But the Marlins are up next, and then followed by the Red Sox. And Cody, they've been pretty on point lately because they've had kind of like a little bit of a turnaround, right? So both of you guys, I want to answer. Cody, start with you. What do you think the predictions will be for the Marlins series and then the Red Sox series?
Yeah, so the Red Sox have won 15 in a row coming, they had that stretch of games. They kind of just changed their entire outlook of their season. Now they're sitting a game and a half up for the second wild card spot. Division technically still in play. They're like 6 games back, even with that run that they went on. And going against the Mariners, I know it's a little close in there. So the Mariners are coming into town. Interleague matchup. It's very funny because the Blue Jays and the Mariners were in the ALCS last year, and the Blue Jays and the Mariners are two of the, like, even though the Mariners are hovering around that playoff situation or that window, the Blue Jays aren't. They're probably going to be a seller at the deadline. And the Mariners aren't far off. If they have a bad stretch of games, like if the Dodgers sweep them and they get pushed back further in their division race and the wild card race, they could start selling off some guys too. So to see, how the American League is kind of just put together over the last 2 seasons, and then compared to the National League, which is just juggernaut after juggernaut. Like even the bad teams are good teams, and kind of shows the complexity between, how just very different it is. But like I said, if you're the Dodgers, you have to take advantage of that. You have to take advantage of a Mariners team who's 4-6 over their last 10. They are 52-55. They're 2 games out of a playoff spot. You got to take advantage of what you can do. We'll see what they do with the Monday or the Tuesday starter, if it's a bullpen game or if they go with the traditional, 5-day layoff with Robleski going on. And then you got the Red Sox, who, they've been hot. We'll see what they do with the deadline. It'd be kind of cool to see them make a run there in October. Maybe we get a rematch of 2018. But yeah, I think it'll be a really good weekend series against Boston. It's always good when you see these historic franchises go up against each other.
Love it. Yes. Mariners, Dre, not Marlins. But yeah, that's for your family from Seattle. So Anthony, talk to me about the series this week and what you expect to see from the Dodgers versus the Mariners and the Red Sox.
So I expect nothing different than they've done the past 3 series out the All-Star break, kind of dominate early. And for me, the Mariners and the Jays have been both very disappointing, at least with the Mariners side of things. Big Dumper has lived up to his nickname, Big Dumpy of a season. It can go back to from the WBC till now. He's been awful all year. Luis Castillo, who will get the ball tomorrow, has been awful all year. There's talks of him possibly getting moved potentially if they eat a ton of salary and stuff like that. And it goes back to the last year in the NLCS where the Mariners were up and they had an opportunity to kind of kick the door shut in the Blue Jays' face, and they just ultimately decided to play conservative, didn't go for the win. And now you're sitting here a year later. I know the Jays are kind of out of it as well too, but you're kind of looking at things and stuff like that. We had a real opportunity to make the World Series. I'm not saying you'd end up winning it, but playing at that level kind of gives you a boost of confidence organizational wise. Like, hey, we reached this level. Let's try to continue to strive for it. And I feel like everything they built up last year, they've kind of just taken one ginormous regression step back. Letting guys like Eugenio Suarez go, mind-boggling for me. I think Randy's kind of been a bit overrated the past season. So Julio Rodriguez is still a star. So this is kind of just me throwing dirt on my family's graves up there. I'm looking past this series, and I hate to say that because it burned me in the face if the Mariners come back and win the series. But I'm looking forward to the Red Sox series because I think that's a potential World Series matchup there. And just by the way they're playing and stuff like that, 15 games in a row where they've won, they've looked pretty solid. And it feels like they might be keying up for a big trade deadline splash to kind of put them over the edge and stuff like that. So for me, I'm looking past the Mariners and I'm looking towards the Red Sox because when we first started our analysis of the season, this was the gauntlet, quote unquote, the gauntlet of games where like, okay, they're going to come out the break. They're going to play the Yankees. They'll play the Phillies. They'll play the Mets because we thought the Mets would be good. They'll play Seattle, who was just in the ALCS. They'll play the Red Sox, who are a young little good team, stuff like that. And then after that, I think we played the Cubs and then even Milwaukee. So like, okay, we played the Mets and obviously it went the way it did. But for me, I think the Red Sox would be a key measuring stick to see where these guys are really, really, truly at. And if they come out of that Red Sox series and they win 2-3, I don't think there's anything that's stopping them apart from injury.
Wow. Yeah, no, tell your family. I mean, they have the Lombardi still, and they have the Seahawks. So we'll
for now.
For now, Solar Rams take it. But yeah, so that brings me to the end of my notes, fellas. Go ahead, Cody, and give us your final thoughts.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be the last time we do something until the trade deadline. It's going to be a very, very interesting couple of days. We all know the Dodgers are going to take care of business. It's kind of for them waiting how the market shakes up. It's going to be really interesting if the Tigers continue to skid and we start to see more and more rumors heat up on that front. Or maybe the Dodgers, sometimes they go out of nowhere and just trade for a player that we didn't even think they were going to trade for. So they're a smart front office. They're going to go for that three-peat. I do believe that they will be aggressive this deadline. It just depends on if they can make things happen given the state of, where everyone else is at in the league right now, where everyone thinks they have an opportunity to make a playoffs right now. So, but it's going to be fun. Can't wait to get back to it on Monday, probably when we reconvene. And then obviously DodgersBeat.com will have all the updates for you, all the rumors and everything going on there. We got a good team working behind the scenes.
Love it. Anthony, what are your final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Yeah, I think within the next couple of days, we'll figure out who's really actually buying and selling. I think the Dodgers will be aggressive, but I don't think they'll do anything dumb that kind of takes them out of contending in future years and stuff like that. If Tarik Skubal truly is out there, I really expect him to kind of go full throttle for him. If he's not out there, I think it'll be more marginal moves around the sides to kind of get things done. Ultimately, for them, their best move might be just getting healthy.
Agree. I mean, we're not the Padres. We don't make dumb trades. So congratulations to our front office, who always knows how to protect us in the now and in the future. So very excited to see what happens in the next week. But yeah, that brings us to the end of our show. As Cody said, make sure to check out DodgersBeat.com. Articles are coming at you quick and daily, and it is awesome to keep you all up to date as we get closer to the deadline 7 days from now. Make sure to check out the Bleed Lows podcast YouTube channel. Producer Roger has been everywhere under the sun, making sure that he has all of the content, interviews, and everything you need to keep yourself up to date on all things Dodgers. Don't forget to check out our handles. You can find me, Drea, on X and Instagram at RivingQueen1958. You can find Cody on X at SnavelyCody6, and you can find Anthony on X and Instagram at Anthony Acosta _. Gentlemen, it has been a pleasure. And until next week on our exciting trade deadline show, let's go Dodgers.